that unless there's something so compelling and overwhelming and bipartisan, I don't think we should go down that path because it divides the country and he's just not worth it. Trump thanked her for the statement. Joining us now to analyze the coverage, Molly Hemingway, senior editor at The Federalist and a Fox News contributor. Beverly Hallberg, president of District Media and a former television producer. And Capri Cafaro, a Washington Examiner contributor and former Democratic state senator in St. Patrick's Day Green. Molly, you could almost sense the media deflation, like the popping the balloon when Pelosi said, no, impeachment's not happening.
Well, you definitely could sense that because for 2 years we've been hearing about how we're sort of on a march to impeachment. We've been hearing about treasonous collusion with Russia to steal an election, which if it were true, then of course he would be impeached. And I think that's what the media coverage missed. They talked about, whether it's good for Democrats or whether it's good for Pelosi. If there were something to impeach President Trump for, he'd be getting impeached right now.
Beverly, some liberal pundits said this was a shrewd move by Pelosi. Others were critical. Why is she taking this off the table? And then conservatives, rather than crediting her, many of them said, well, this just shows how divided the Democratic Party is.
And they are divided. I think Nancy Pelosi has a huge issue, and that is while she has strong name ID, she's the Speaker of the House, she's going to have the media cover her. She also has this liberal caucus of young members who want to speak to the media or go just to social media and put their perspective out.
They don't just want to speak to the media.
They
do.
They do.
They have huge platforms.
And she's going to have a hard time wrangling them. We've already seen that. She's used to being able to keep everybody in check. So I think this media battle is going to be a hard one for her moving forward.
Capri, in terms of Pelosi trying to deal with this sort of fire-breathing caucus of liberal anti-Trump haters in her own party, she was sure in that Washington Post interview to take a shot at the president. He's just not worth it. Right. She also said later in the interview that the president is ethically unfit and intellectually unfit, but we're not going to impeach him.
Well, I mean, and, those things that you just referenced were not necessarily headlines. They were sort of buried over the fact that obviously she's saying that they don't want to impeach. I think that, taking away the issue of impeachment does take away an entire plot of a miniseries for the press. They really wanted to see this, and the fact that it's not happening, I think, I
think Molly would say it's not a miniseries, it's the main drama.
It could be the main drama, but miniseries is really a 1980s term, right? Yeah. But I think that, it's smart politically, but I think that the political dynamics really are what's getting the lion's share of the coverage in this. And to your point, we have a lot of the younger members that are still going out there, including Representative Tlaib, who talked about impeachment and went out there and did another op-ed saying she still wants it.
She talked about impeachment with that word that we don't repeat on television. So Pelosi later said, well, we'll see what the Mueller report comes up with, and we're not going to impeach for political or not, and we're not going to not impeach for political reasons. But clearly, and I think that some of the coverage reflects this, she's trying to tamp down this sentiment, not only among the left wing of our party, but in the liberal press as well, where it's constantly talked about.
Well, and part of the reason why she's trying to tamp it down, I think there's an understanding that impeachment can be helpful to the president. Even if it isn't harmful to the Democrats, it would be really sort of seal a 2020 victory that they don't want to see. But again, just weeks ago, she was calling President Trump a traitor. Now, the punishment for being a traitor is not just impeachment. It's actually much greater than that.
That's the word she used?
She said that he was an agent of Putin, which I think is a fair thing to say, that that's treasonous behavior. Now, if that were true, then there should be much punishment. I think the media need to ask people specifics about why they're walking some of this back. We have been fed such dramatic tales about what's going on, and I think people are sensing that this whole Russia collusion narrative that they bought into, whole hog, is not working out for them, and they need to be
press that bring that up.
But we need to have people who fed this conspiracy and who talked about this explain why they're backing away if that had been true.
We will have a lot more to say about that once this Mueller report comes out. It's sort of this waiting for Godot moment right now in Washington. It's going to be tomorrow. No, it's definitely going to be next week. But what some of the more thoughtful commentators say, and I agree with this, is that if the Democrats in the House were to go down the impeachment road, it would utterly dominate the news for the next year. It would completely wipe out any talk of any agenda they might have. It would energize Donald Trump's base. And ultimately, it would fail in a Republican-controlled Senate.
Oh, Donald Trump wants them to move forward with impeachment because it benefits him. And so I think what Republicans...
You're saying the President of the United States is pro-impeachment, or just...
Because he can use it for the election. He's pro them taking this narrative and really pushing on it. But you're already seeing Democrats who are smart about this taking a different perspective, which is not expecting to get what they want from this Mueller probe. So now they're saying, but are we going to be transparent and see what's in it? So they're already changing their narrative, which, as Molly said, is very contradictory to what they said before.
Because Pelosi said it had to be bipartisan, it has conjured up a lot of sort of history in the press, Capri, about both Bill Clinton and Richard Nixon,
Right.
And the way that impeachment can backfire if it's only organized or supported by one party.
Right. I mean, and look, this is because Nancy Pelosi is an adult, has been around for a long time, and in that regard, because she had a front row to history, that benefits her. And I think that this divide amongst Democrats, and I think it is getting the coverage there as well, that folks like Nancy Pelosi and Steny Hoyer that have been around for a minute, the pros versus what I would call the neophytes, the young folks, don't understand. They don't necessarily understand the political dynamics, and I think that is the old and the new are playing out.
I don't know if they want those political dynamics. I think they just want to make a name for themselves.
Agreed.